Welcome to Voices of the Dead, where these aren't just stories, these are real events.
Story name Room 6. Daniel had never planned to stop at the inn. He was driving through the countryside on a rainy night when his car began to sputter, coughing out smoke. The nearest mechanic was miles away, and the storm showed no sign of stopping. So when he saw the dim yellow glow of the Riverside Inn sign swinging in the wind, he had no choice but to pull over. The building looked ancient. Its wooden beams leaned as though they were tired of standing, and its windows were clouded with dust. Still, it was shelter, and that was all he wanted. Inside, the inn smelled of damp wood and something faintly metallic. An old woman sat behind the counter. She had silver hair, skin like parchment, and pale eyes that seemed almost colorless. "Need a room?" she asked, in a voice that was calm but oddly hollow. "Yes," Daniel sighed, wiping the rain off his jacket. "Just for the night." The woman hesitated, then slid a brass key across the counter. Room 6, end of the corridor. Daniel noticed the way her fingers trembled as she let go of the key. He almost asked her if something was wrong, but exhaustion pulled him back. The corridor leading to Room 6 was narrow and dim. Lamps flickered as though their flames struggled to stay alive. Daniel dragged his suitcase along, but soon he slowed down because something about the doors caught his eye. Every single door had deep scratches carved near the handle, long, desperate marks, as if someone had tried to claw their way out. He frowned. Probably just old damage, he told himself. Yet the unease in his chest grew heavier with each step. When he reached the very end, he found Room 6. Unlike the other doors, this one seemed far older. The paint peeled like dead skin, the brass number hung crooked, and the wood carried a faint, dark stain near the bottom. Inside, the room was small and cold, a single bed with thin sheets, a cracked mirror leaning against the wall, a wardrobe that stood in the corner like a silent guard. Daniel tried to shake off the feeling and lay down, but sleep didn't come easily. The wind outside howled, rain lashed against the window, and the air inside felt damp, almost suffocating. At some point, he drifted into an uneasy sleep until a sound woke him. Knock, knock, knock. It wasn't the door. It wasn't the window. It came from the wardrobe. Daniel sat up, heart pounding. He stared at the wardrobe, telling himself it was nothing. Old houses creaked, wood shifted. It was normal, but the knocks continued, louder, more deliberate. Knock, knock, knock. The wardrobe door trembled slightly. Then, with a slow groan, it creaked open just an inch. Daniel's breath caught in his throat, and in that narrow gap, he thought he saw it, a pale hand, long nails dragging across the floorboards before vanishing back inside. Daniel leapt from the bed, rushing toward the door, but when he grabbed the handle, it wouldn't turn. The door was locked from the outside. His pulse raced. He banged on the door, shouting, "Hey, open up!" No answer. From behind him, the wardrobe creaked wider, and then, from the darkness within, came a whisper. "You shouldn't be here." The lamp on the bedside table flickered violently and went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Daniel's eyes adjusted slowly, and that's when he saw it. Something crawling out of the wardrobe, a shape, a figure, thin, twisted, with hair hanging in clumps and a neck bent at a wrong angle. It pulled itself onto the floor, its hands clawing, its eyes black as the night. It lifted its face toward him and smiled.
Daniel's legs refused to move. The figure dragged itself closer, bones cracking with every motion. Its black eyes reflected no light, and when its mouth opened, Daniel saw no teeth, only a dark, endless void. "Why did you take my room?" the voice hissed, though its lips barely moved. Daniel stumbled backward until his back hit the cold wall. His breath came in shallow bursts. "Stay away from me," he shouted, but his voice cracked. The figure crawled closer, its nails scratching deep grooves into the wooden floor. Suddenly, the lamp flickered back to life, flooding the room with dim light. The figure was gone. The wardrobe stood wide open, empty. Daniel gripped the doorknob desperately. This time it turned. He rushed out into the corridor, slamming the door shut behind him. The corridor seemed longer than before, darker, the flickering lamps casting distorted shadows that danced along the walls. He ran, but no matter how far he went, the corridor stretched on endlessly. Every door he passed bore the same marks, scratches, bloodstains, and sometimes whispers leaking through the cracks. Finally, he spotted the stairs at the end. He sprinted down, heart hammering. The inn's lobby was silent, too silent. The desk where the old woman had been sitting was empty. Daniel called out, "Hello? Is anyone here?" Only the echo of his own voice replied. Then he saw something that froze his blood. On the wall behind the counter hung an old photograph. It showed the inn as it looked decades ago. In front of it stood a group of smiling people, the innkeeper among them, much younger. But what made Daniel's stomach twist was the figure in the corner of the photo. A gray-skinned woman, her neck bent, her eyes black voids, the same thing that crawled out of his wardrobe. And scrawled beneath the photo, almost faded, "Do not enter room 6. Daniel's hands shook as he grabbed the front door. It was locked tight. He pulled, shoved, slammed his shoulder against it, but it didn't budge. Behind him, the sound began again. Knock, knock, knock. But this time, it wasn't just from the wardrobe. It came from every door in the corridor upstairs. Dozens of knocks, dozens of whispers. A cold draft swept through the lobby, carrying the smell of rot. The lamps flickered and died one by one until Daniel stood in darkness. Then, from the staircase, they came. Figures, dozens of them. Pale, twisted, broken. Their bodies moved unnaturally, crawling, dragging, some with jaws hanging loose, others with hollow sockets where eyes should be. They whispered together, a chorus of broken voices, "Stay with us." Daniel bolted toward the kitchen at the back of the inn, his boots slamming against the floor. He burst through the swinging door and found himself in a narrow, filthy room with rusted stoves and broken chairs. But the worst part, every window was bricked shut from the inside. There was no escape. He turned to find one of the figures standing in the doorway. It was the woman from the wardrobe. Her body twisted and jerked with each step she entered, her black eyes never leaving his. Daniel backed up until he hit the counter. She leaned closer, her breath cold on his face. "You don't leave. No one ever leaves." The last thing Daniel remembered was her hand on his throat, pulling him into the darkness. Weeks later, a traveler stopped at the Riverside Inn. The old woman greeted him at the counter, pale eyes unblinking. When the man asked for a room, she slid a brass key across the counter. "Room 6, she said softly, at the end of the corridor.
If you survived this story, give it a like and subscribe to Voices of the Dead so you never miss the next haunting.